Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Amazon Connect podcast with me, Douglas Park, and far more importantly, Mark Rudkowski. And we do have a special guest, but we'll get to him in a moment after we ask Mark, how are you doing, Mark?
I am doing fantastic. It's a wonderful evening here back on the East Coast of North Carolina. So glad to
I
be
can tell by
on
the impressive array of books behind you.
Yes,
And I noticed the Amazon Connect 5-year cap
that's right
sitting
up there.
just above your head there.
That's right.
Pride of place. Mine is downstairs somewhere. I must get that
Yeah.
out. But yes, I could tell you're back home. And another person who looks like they're back home is, well, I think we need to give him a bit of a build up here, don't we? Because he
Yep.
is,
Yes.
of the people still on the tools as a solution architect, the oldest, I'm quite certain,
No,
longest serving.
yeah,
Still
yeah.
on the tools?
There
Oh,
we go.
yes, yeah, there's older. Yeah, no. Jeremy Puent, who has been, who was, and I don't think I've shared this with Jeremy, but he was the first other person on the team I ever met because I started in Australia where there wasn't anyone else, and I went over to the sales kickoff, and the first person who reached out, and I went and met you in a bar, which is entertaining because you don't drink and haven't for the entire time I've known you, but you're a social guy. But Jeremy, I will let you talk for a second, but I just wanted to remind you that you were the very first person on the team, all of Connect, that I ever met. So thank you for that.
Don't tell anybody else, but you're still my favorite.
But Jeremy, please, I've basically given the game away, but tell us about yourself. Just give us a quick intro.
Jeremy Puent, Principal Solutions Architect for Amazon Connect. The day that we're recording this is Amazon Day 1, number 3038 for me.
Wow.
So
Oh,
8
knocking
years,
on
3
that red
months, and
badge.
change.
Yeah,
I
knocking on
can
that.
see it. It's still a little ways
Yeah.
away, but I can
Yeah.
see it. I see a
You're
path.
closer to it than you are to when you got your orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And just to alert the people, as you progress through your time at Amazon, your badge, your identifier changes color at certain key times at 5 years, at 10 years, at 15 years, at 20 years. And so getting the red badge is not that common. Not that common. So it is definitely a badge of honor.
One other thing that I'll call out with Jeremy is if you have not had the opportunity to go to reInvent, Jeremy,
Yes.
you will have no problem spotting Jeremy wherever he walks.
You're killing me. I think this might be the first reInvent that I miss. I did
Oh,
not get
no.
an invite this year. So unless something changes or somebody pulls something out, I don't
Oh,
have a ticket right now, so I'm not going.
Well,
It's gonna
just
break an 8-year streak.
just quietly, this is I'm hoping this podcast will be my reason to get to reInvent because there's so many SAs and so many people in the States that you really have to work hard to get over that. I'd love to see the big show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is getting increasingly harder even for us at AWS to get to get into reInvent because there's so many new capabilities, new services, right? More people, right? It's just a massive venue, and it's
Even Vegas runs out of room at some point.
they do.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. People don't want to hear us. Well, they might want to hear us a little bit. Hopefully, they want to hear us a little bit. But of the new things that have been released, we'll just do our quick updates before we get into the good stuff. Mark, what stood out for you?
So what I wanted to kind of call out was we've actually introduced some new specialty training badges.
Yes.
So I thought that was a good thing to call it because it's one of those things that we hear from customers is what are ways that I can learn more about Connect, right? I mean, obviously they're listening to this podcast, which is a
That's
great
the best way.
Sure. Right. But on top of that is, we do have some badge programs that they can start to go through and really start to deep dive and better understand, the capabilities of Connect. And it's a really great way to just understand, what are all the features in terms of the fundamentals. We just came out with the Connect AI fundamentals badge as well. And then we're shortly going to come out with reporting and analytics, outbound campaigns, and workforce optimizations. Those are coming up in the next couple quarters. So definitely stay tuned.
As of today, you can get fundamentals, you can get developer, you can get AI. There's one more, isn't there? I can't remember what you've got in front of you. I think, Mark.
Communication specialist.
Communication specialist. That's it.
Yes. Yes.
And how much do these cost, Mark? Surely they must be thousands of dollars.
You
each.
know what? They cost absolutely nothing.
We are practically a charity.
Correct.
No,
Exactly.
and
You
the,
can't
I
give them
want,
away fast enough, right? Like they're just flying off the shelves. So people
There
need
are
to,
actually there are a lot of people who have. I saw the numbers the other day. There's a big uptake across the globe. It's
yes,
really it shows the need really was there, and the quality I think is really what stands out because it just to be clear, these are not made by a third party company.
no,
All of us have been involved in making them at some point. They're made by people around the world. I know Jeremy has taken a lead in a lot of this to make sure the content is of good value, and that's going to tie in nicely to the main topic of the show today. But I think it's also good for people to understand that the plan is for this to build into an overall certification.
right.
So once we
Exactly.
have enough, that this will become a bit like the associate solution architect certification that you can get. That this will
Yeah,
be another one alongside the AWS certifications.
I
exactly.
think one pretty cool thing with the badges since we released them, a number of my enterprise customers here in the U.S. sort of gamified this, and they've
Okay.
got challenges going on within their teams for who can get them the fastest, who can get the most. But it's a great way that customers were asking us for the ability to upskill, and they're really taking advantage of the badge program in order to do that and fill different gaps in their internal teams as they onboard and grow their connect practices and knowledge.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, partners, I found the same thing. Like they are, I mean, partners were probably the ones shouting the loudest for this because
Yeah.
they knew onboard new people. They want to get them up to speed as quick as they can, get them delivering for their customers who are our customers. And they were just at us like we need more, we need certifications, we need something so we know these guys are ready to go. So it's been that uptake's been really gratifying. But we'll come. I think this is, as I say, is going to tie into our main topic. So we'll just cover off a couple of the other new releases. The one I think stands out for me that's interesting is the manual work assignment for agents. And to give the first line of the blurb, agents can manually prioritize their next important task, email, or chat in queue. So basically, to cherry pick, as people say. Now, this one hurts a little bit for me because
Me too.
I think there is reasoning and logic behind it because I always used to say that to have the ability to cherry pick was basically admitting that your routing wasn't good enough, that your
Mhm.
routing's broken, and or that you're not actually owning up to the fact that you're running a contact center here and what you want is business logic to decide who is the best person to take this next contact. It's up there with, when you've got those flash-based routing engines, as I call them, which are team leaders going in and changing routing and moving people around, and all that. Like it's
The
just you're not.
supervisors always know the best,
Yeah,
right? Right. Right. And
that's what
that's
they think.
we
That's
always
what
hear
they think.
that. Yeah.
But where I think this has where the landscape has changed underneath our feet is that Connect has become so broad and is moving into being a routing engine for all of business.
Mhm.
Thanks to cases, tasks, that we're actually, this will no longer just be contact center. You'll actually be able to route all kinds of work and make sure that the customer outcome is handled all the way through to the back office with that observability reporting and all the rest of it. And that's where it starts to become more important, where you're not actually dealing with work for contact center agents, where it could be an account manager or someone like that, or someone in support who gets a contact saying, hey, I want to know about this. I sent in a request for X or Y. I mean, I'll look through. Yep, there it is. I found Mark's request. I'll pull that out of the queue. So I'm softening on it. I still don't think it's useful in the contact center, but I'm prepared to let this one go. But Mark,
I
go.
I think it's even more so, Doug. It's like we're becoming the orchestration layer,
That's
right?
it.
Right. Like I think that is what it is, right? Like we are becoming that fabric, right, for your customer experience and your customer journeys. And that is essentially what Connect is and what it's becoming. And that's super important as we look at where we're going. And what you mentioned, a lot of our workflow capabilities and our routing capabilities, but also, our agentic capabilities that are also being plugged into that as
Yeah.
well, right? So it's all going to be part of that fabric, right, as we continue to evolve Connect.
And I can see
Yeah,
Jeremy's itching to talk.
I
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some edge cases where it's very powerful. My worry or my concern is people who, well, we've always done it that way, so we're going to continue to
Yeah.
do it that
This
way
enables
instead of
us
letting
to
the routing engine do
Yes.
its job. And the risk is always, hey, there's that one customer that everyone knows is a huge pain. And the next thing you know, you're saying the system's broken because that contact's been sitting there waiting for 25 minutes because everybody's picking any contact but that one,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
you've got to trust the system to do its job. There are some times where they need this ability, and so I'm glad that we did add it. There are some edge cases where it is powerful and it does make sense. People just have to be careful and use it appropriately, right? Not abuse it, and definitely not let the agents abuse it.
Well, this I want to misuse the phrase "put a pin in this one" because I want to put a pin in this one so we stick on it for a second because I think this leads us neatly into exactly where we wanted to go on this episode, and that is leading from the badges and from the point you just made into Mark and I, Jeremy, always talk about proficiency-based routing our guests into the podcast. And your proficiency today, the one that you've been picked for, is for best practices and implementation success with Amazon Connect, and whether that be through education or, and this is the point I want to talk about here, where the idea of that re-architecting for the cloud as a general principle of AWS, and what we mean by that. And this is the best analogy I can think of, is this is leaving aside the contact center, this is moving to the cloud generally. You say, I've got a data center that has 10 servers in it. And you go across to AWS and say, right, well, I'm going to need 10 EC2 instances of the exact same spec, and I'm just going to move my applications onto those EC2 instances. That is not re-architecting for the cloud. That's not taking advantage. That's basically just a lift and shift. And you might get some benefit from a little bit of cost out, or keep not having to refresh your hardware and all that kind of thing. But you're really not getting the benefits of moving to serverless and breaking apart your applications than actually thinking about the outcomes that you're after and all the rest of it. So that's the lens I want to take to this, because I think what you just said there, Jeremy, was a perfect example of re-architecting the contact center for the cloud. That is, you don't just go and say, well, we need to, we put in our RFP that we need to cherry pick contacts, and that we need a really good supervisor interface, because our supervisors sit there all day and think their job is to move agents around from different queues or different skills. As I see a queue build up, I grab some people from over here and I move them over there, or at this time of day, and I turn this off, and they get that sense of importance, and I'm really the one who understands what's going on in the contact center. So maybe that's a great place to begin, is that whole re-architecting. How would you begin re-architecting your contact center for the cloud? And that can take the form of moving from on-premise to the cloud, or from where you've already moved to the cloud, but you've just lifted and shifted. So
Yeah, that's you hit a lot of awesome points in that setup for this, Doug. And I think um, I over the 8+ years I've been here, I've shocked a number of customers and account managers when they've told me, like, we want to just take what we've got and put it into the cloud. And I have openly in meetings said, then why move?
yeah,
Right? Then why move? Like, there's no point. If you're going to do exactly what you've done, you're going to get what you've always got, right? You've got to rethink this. You've got to take a different approach. So the first thing is, I often, almost always, talk about our working backwards process, right? And you've got to start there. You've got to define what's your desired end state of customer experience here, because that's really what we're talking about and what matters here, the customer experience.
can I
And
can I- can
define
I
that, right?
can I
Yeah.
give the way I say that is, you want to ask yourself, what do I want to happen when Jeremy calls my contact center?
Yep.
That's it. Like that's where you begin. That's the question.
Well, the way I usually ask it is, well, tell me about your current experience. What did you want? I
Mm.
always ask it that way. Not what do you do, but what did you want? Because every customer tells me a story that goes something like, well, we wanted to do this, but the IVR only let us do that. We wanted to do
Mhm.
this, but the ACD only let us do that. And they end up describing some mediocre version of what they set out to build. And I go, great. What does the ideal state, the thing you wanted, look like today? That's how we want to start. So when you get them thinking not just about what they have today, but what they wanted before they ended up with what they got, it starts them thinking in that bigger mode, which is what we want. We want them to think bigger. We want them to dream the ideal customer experience. When Jeremy calls, what's the right way? When Mark calls, how are you going to wow him? Tell me what
Mm.
that experience looks like.
Mm.
And then we say, now we're going to start with, we're going to plug in these different things to solve that and create that experience, right? And you're not thinking about what you do today then or how you've always done it. You're thinking about what's the best experience for my customer.
And Jeremy, how do you think about things like, I know we use the term art of the possible, right? How does that come into play here when we go through this working back process?
So it depends on the customer. Some of them think very tactically. They're very focused on, just the best experience based on what they think of today. Some of them I push or show something like art of the possible. Some of the stuff that you both have seen over the years, like the patent with the VR stuff, that
Hmm.
answering a contact center call inside of virtual reality and seeing what they're calling about.
Mhm.
That's very much future art of the possible. I mean, it's possible
And
because
it's a
they built it.
specific use case for certain customers where it'll be very
Right, but
impactful.
but it
Yeah.
gets them thinking outside of the box of just what they do today.
Mhm.
Others, I'll have just walk through that ideal, and then I start asking questions and thinking bigger for them, or saying, "Well, I have other customers that have done similar to that, but here's some ways that they took it and kicked it up a notch," right? And you sort of build up because it's sometimes a bridge too far for some people, right? Like people that are very used to here's what I've got and I know the three levers I can pull to control it and that's the world that I live in. Talking to them about VR, their eyes are going to roll in their head,
Yeah.
right? So you've got to take the customer to where you think they can go and then maybe push just a little bit further. The other thing I'll do is, I think Doug, you said workshops or something like that, right? I'll do workshops with them, and any of my customers, any of my coworkers that have done events like that with me know, I talk a lot about crawl, walk, run.
Mm.
So the run is the think big dream, and the walk is, the next stage, but the crawl is what we're going to build right now that you can start with, and then you're going to build towards those other things. But I always give customers one little bit of homework that goes beyond the run, right?
Mm.
There's some idea I
The
have for
stretch
them
goal.
that could really change the way that they do business. One of my customers in the travel and hospitality space, um, they came to me a few years back and said, "You're not getting the contact center. We just want to talk IVR. Great. We did a Lex and Connect project for IVR." Then they came and said, "How quickly can we move?" We started laying things out. We did a working backwards exercise, talking through their stuff. And then I planted this homework idea of, sort of robotic process automation, and it was when we were just getting ready to launch Tasks,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah, yeah.
became this huge thing for them. They became for years one of the biggest consumers of Tasks, because of this homework that I gave them that they thought about and chewed on, and we went back and forth for a little bit as they built the crawl, the walk, the run, and then started to enhance the core voice capabilities. Then we did this extra homework and it grew into a huge thing. Then they adopted chat and, they're
Well,
all in. But
Tasks is a really interesting one because I think it's one of the most fluid parts of the platform, along with step-by-step guides maybe. But because Tasks, when you say to someone, well, basically we've opened up the routing engine and you can push any piece of work to an agent using the routing and reporting. Terrific. But it's when you start to see the customers who actually do things outside the box, to use a hackneyed term. But for instance, I had during COVID, there was one health customer who was using it to push training, or government, daily government updates to the
yeah, yeah.
agents, making sure that they had it. Another was uses it to push the schedules to agents. Like just to remind you, at 9:30, a task comes in to say, "Hey, you've just taken call, web chat." Then a task comes in, "Hey, Doug, take a break." These are just two examples of ways I didn't really think about tasks. I was thinking about tasks as, oh, here's a scanned document or a link to something, or something that's come out of the CRM that you need to do. But actually, it can be training, can be schedules, could be like it's such a flexible part of the platform that can solve so many problems that haven't even been thought about yet. And it's that kind of thinking you're talking about that brings that to the fore. So how do you think the pricing model for Connect, and this is a leading question because obviously I have a very strong view on this, as
Yeah.
anyone who has listened to the podcast, but I'm keen to know because we haven't discussed this before, whether you come to the same. How does the pricing model, the consumption based pricing, aid that kind of thinking, because I'm always keen to talk about not only what we can do, but how easy it is to do it. Because I think that's often lost in discussions, because people go, well, does this platform do X? Does this platform do X? Rather than how easy is it to do it, or what's the lock-in. But yeah, Jeremy,
Yeah,
please.
the process of RFPs hasn't died yet, but I'm hopeful that one day it will. And consumption-based pricing is going to be the reason it dies, right?
Yep.
You're no longer concerned about making a multi-million-dollar upfront investment that is buying the wrong thing. You can try something out. There's a free tier. You can try it. And like you start to play with it, your first bill might be $7.
Yep.
Ooh, if it doesn't work out, I think you can afford a $7 investment, right? If it
Yep.
does, then you kick it up and you're doing 100, 1,000, 5,000, whatever, as your business grows and you onboard more and more. But it gives you flexibility that you've never had.
Well, you
And
can
the
establish what
time,
the business value is. You can establish, is this actually going to
100%.
make me more than $7 back when I spend $7?
yes.
Yes.
And you're not doing a multi-million-dollar upfront investment. The amount of hours that are spent on RFPs on both sides,
Mm.
or often more than two sides, right? Vendor, customer, partner, plus others. Like, if you spend that time investing in just trying to build out, is tasks going to work for me? And do I see the value that I expect from it? Or step-by-step guides or whatever, it's so much better served by investing that time, energy, and resources in trying something
And I
than
think
an
as
RFP exercise. Yeah.
the RFP also, to take it back one section to what you're talking about up front, it almost sets in concrete that like for like, I want what I had before. Because when you think up a list of questions, do you do this? Do you do that? You're usually, like, there's some cases where they've done some thinking on it, but oftentimes they're basically asking for exactly what they've got now, plus a couple of things that the features that this one doesn't have, or whatever.
Or
And
worse, they give you the list of every feature that is in the product they have today, even if they're not using it. Like,
yeah,
I've been in
because
so
we don't
many
want to lose anything.
conversations
We don't
where I
want to
go,
be,
how
yeah.
many of these do you use? And they're like, well, 10 of them. Why are the rest of them on this list then? Because
My
we've got
my
them today, but you
my
don't use it.
my favorite is barge in. Like often it's in RFPs. Can the supervisor barge in on a call they're listening into? I'm not sure I've ever, when I've asked the question of the customer, do you actually use this today? Anyone has ever said yes. Like
I
I
did
just
when I was a supervisor.
I know you
Going way
did.
back, right? Like there would be agents. Well, here's the thing. Like if you think about it, right? Uh, I, we've got stats in our decks
That
today
surprises
about.
me in no way, Jeremy.
I'm
No
sure.
way.
I'm sure. But the problem is, i- we talk about good customer experience, and for
Yes.
years and years, people have said great customer experience drives loyalty. And I personally think that's wrong, like
Mhm.
100% wrong. The opposite is actually true. Bad customer experiences drive disloyalty.
Yeah, I think
Doug
yeah.
can treat me great 99 times in a row, but if that 100th time he treats me like dirt, I am gone. I
Yep.
am going somewhere else, right? So finding out about after the fact, hey, Mark, Doug just treated Jeremy poor. You can try to call me back. I might not take your call. It might be too late. But being able to barge in and correct that when things are going wrong matters more. And it's not just with barge, right? It's with other things, like with contact lens, being able to have rules and get alerts.
Mm.
Hey, the sentiment's trending down. This is going the wrong way. Being able to step in the moment, however you do it, whether you
Yeah,
barge
well,
in or
you
you
might
coach
not
the
barge in,
agent
but
or
contact the
whatever,
agent. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
But being able to take action right now is really what matters the most. And back then, that was the only thing I could do. I could listen, I could hear somebody getting escalated, I could jump in, try and coach them down, or barge in and take control and fix it before it got too bad to where I lost a customer.
Terrify the customer as the voice of God leaps in. But Mark, you're about to talk.
No, I was going to say that would freak me out more, right? Like I'm on
Yeah,
a call,
that's what I think as
the
well.
voice comes into the call, like that's always a weird customer experience too, right?
But
On top of it,
the other thing I wanted to say about RFPs, where I think
Especially
everybody
Jeremy's voice jumped on a call, I'd be like, Lord, I gotta hear him now.
Whatever, your ringtone is my voice. Mark, pick up the phone.
but the closing out on RFPs and the absurdity of the situation now is, of course, everyone knows they're largely being generated by large language models, and they're often being answered by large language models. It's like, I don't know if you guys remember I can't remember what it was called, the Hugh Jackman movie, where he's trying to win back the respect of his son by fighting with sort of robots by proxy.
Yeah, Robot Wars.
Robot Wars.
Or BattleBots.
Probably
BattleBots.
BattleBots,
No?
yeah.
Was it?
Something like that. But
Yeah.
it could be called either of those things, and
Good thing we're not a
appropriate name.
movie podcast, because we would be not doing very well right now.
but this, I feel like that's what started to happen with RFPs. Like
Yeah.
the customer gets their large language model as their robot to fight for them, and we get our large language model to answer the questions to fight for us. And everyone's just trying to get to that next stage of, all right, well, let's get to the point where we can actually talk to each other and we can demonstrate and all the rest of it. But again, I think this comes back to bring it back to that the consumption based pricing model as well. If I'm going to be direct about it, and maybe take what might sound like a slightly negative view, Jeremy, but I think it's a realistic one operationally, that whenever you change platform, there's going to be a period of adjustment. And what you're talking about by being able to try things, and where this gives customers a level of comfort, is it brings forward that period of adjustment, whether it is it could be disappointment, it could be that we found a gap, or it could be this does it way better, whatever it is. But basically, rather than waiting until late in the project after you've signed that multi-million-dollar 3-year deal and you go, oh, does this mean we're going to change everything? You've actually brought that right up to the front, and you can make as a business a decision at that point. You can say, well, this new platform is going to work this way. What are the benefits? What are the negatives? What do we need to change? I mean, a good example the other day was a customer over in New Zealand was trying to embark on our forecasting, capacity planning, and scheduling. Now, they had set up they'd made the classic problem with their queues of functionally confusing queues and proficiencies. And so their forecasting just couldn't work. Like, it was just, it didn't there weren't enough calls per queues. The queues didn't actually align to what agents did. You couldn't put them in the correct forecast groups. It just wouldn't fit. Now, that's not me saying they were wrong to do that, although they were wrong to do that. But that then took me on a journey of, okay, I'm explaining that an agent's proficiencies are different from what a customer wants. And how you decouple those, and how you don't muck up your reporting and your routing just because you want that reporting outcome. And what that then enabled was for forecasting, capacity, and planning and scheduling. Now, that would have been a much different discussion if we had signed a multi-million-dollar deal right now, and all of a sudden there's people's jobs on the line saying, we believe this was going to work exactly like stuff used to work before, and you promised, and all those horrible come to Jesus meetings and all those kinds of things, where you can actually now say, okay, let's try this out. Does it work? Oh, it works that way. Okay, well, let's think about this. Is it worth us changing? Yes, it is, because these are the benefits. Or no, it's not. I think that's so powerful for customers.
Yeah, and it helps them learn along the way and try new things. I prefer to try to have the conversation up front to educate them. Now, here's how to think about it in Connect. That's the way I try to do it. Like, these queues, these routing, these things all behave a little differently than you're likely expecting based on legacy products.
Yep.
Here's how to think about it. Here's how I think about it. Here's why I think about it this way. Here's the way I've seen customers be really successful. Here's the way I've seen customers solve for some of the edge cases that you're asking about. Give it some thought, try it, and see which way you like better, right? And see what the results are, again, to achieve your business outcomes. See what else you gain from doing it this way. Often you're going to gain much better insights than you had with, the way you did it before. I think people often forget what went into the decisions they made that led to the way they're using it on legacy platforms because of the limitations in those systems. Like, how many of us can look back and think about systems where, 10 queues were created as 100 queues because it was the only way they could get reporting on them. So you had customer support, but you had customer support English, customer support Spanish, customer support French, customer support. Those are, again, the human proficiencies, not the queues. They need support, right? And so they were doing that in order to get reporting results or to be able to manage things. And there are different ways that we can solve for all of those problems, right? And you get better outcomes. I think that the word that you loved that I really focused in on was operationalize this, right?
Mhm.
And that's the biggest thing that
How's it
I
actually
see
going to look when
customers.
when once you put on the suit and you're walking into the party? Not how
Yeah.
does it look when you're in the shop, or how does it look in the catalog?
Yeah, and I think that, the way that Connect operates, the way that, cloud tooling is used is very different in organizations, and this is one of the big areas that customers migrating or moving to Connect, often struggle with, is trying to identify who needs to do what and how to get
Yes.
these teams to work together differently. And so that's another one of those things where I want to educate them up front and start to have conversations and talk about, look, a lot of the stuff that you used to do and be responsible for, we do for you. You know, the way I often describe it is if you said, in order to build any contact center from scratch, there are 1,000 decisions that need to be made, right?
Hmm.
um, we can assume that the first 800 decisions, everybody's going to make the same. We all
Hmm.
want redundant, resilient telephony. We all want redundant, resilient servers and architectures and capabilities, right? So we, as Amazon, we call that the undifferentiated heavy lifting. We do those first 800 things for you. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to worry about them anymore. Now you focus on the 200 that set your business apart. And that's also a struggle for customers because they feel like they're giving up control, right? And now it's a black
Yes.
box.
Yeah.
The telephony, you're controlling it all. And
And there might be a
but
couple
it
of guys
works.
or gals whose job literally was to look after that stuff.
Right.
And how do
And
we
they're gonna
retrain
learn
them,
new
redeploy
skills,
them?
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Luckily, there's badging for them to go get new
That's right.
skills.
That's exactly
Exactly.
So
right.
that
That's
right?
exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that that is one of the key conversations to have, especially when it comes to this. Like beyond the queues and all of those things, the how do you operationalize this at scale, especially for large enterprises, is such a different way of thinking about and tackling contact center. And that's usually the longest tent pole, right?
And
Like in any of these projects.
it's not just as well the bringing the, and I know you were saying this, but I want to really spell it out. It's not just bringing the business people and some of the telephony tech people over towards this way of thinking. I find it's also an education piece for the cloud guys and the developers and all that, who used to just ignore the contact center. Well, that's a
Mhm.
black box over there that just does the thing it does. We don't
Mhm.
even
Yep.
talk. We don't even bother with it. We're busy working on the website and working on all this kind of, and actually getting in contact with them and saying, hey, that API you wrote, or probably more commonly these days, that that MCP server or whatever it is that you're using over here, you can use that over here now as well. And they actually love it because it's so demonstrable. It's so tangible what you can do. Like
Well,
the moment you
a cloud developer
go
is a
on.
cloud developer, right? And
Yeah.
can tie basically in the same way that you're developing for other AWS services, you can now develop for Connect,
Yes, you can
right? And that's the
reuse. You can.
advantage
Yep.
that we have. We've built on all these primitives, right? Within Connect, and allow you to leverage those. And so that's a huge advantage, particularly with the speed you can build your integrations and which you can go through that migration process, right? And I
Yeah.
think we could probably spend a whole nother. I feel like it's gonna be a whole nother.
I know we're at 33 minutes, Mark.
Just migration, right? I think we'll have to bring Jeremy back to go through, what are migration best practices and talk through all of that as well, because I think that's also a super hot topic. Just in terms of
100%. We
how to-
we could talk for days, and I know we all do talk for days about this stuff, but we do
Because
need to draw
we've
it to a
lived-
close.
right? We've lived this with customers, right? We've lived this. We've seen everything from, how do you lift and shift and then, start to drive, transformation at that point, or do you drive transformation at the beginning of the migration and go through there, right? So there's trade-offs, right? And how you go through that process. So I think there's,
Exactly right.
yeah, it'd be a great, I think, another discussion, for us to get into, because I think that's
There are so many continuums where we allow customers to decide where they want to place themselves on it. The use of AI,
It's
how
the
you want
world's
to migrate.
largest choose your own adventure book, man.
Yeah.
exactly.
It
It
is.
I can
is, and
actually, if I turn and look, I can see a big right there. There's a big collection of choose your own adventure books. There's like
That's why
20
I
of them.
love you, Doug.
is.
I've got
Well, let's
some
end
right
on-
over there.
Let's end on that happy,
Because you're
happy
on the
note.
other side of the world. So
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I am on the other side of the world. Well, we should say you're in Chicago, Jeremy. We always like to say where we are. So I'm
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Melbourne, as people can tell. Yeah.
I usually tell people I exist between confusion and exhaustion, but yeah, I'm physically right outside of Chicago.
At the moment, Jeremy travels as
Yes.
much as probably I do and Doug does. So,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
in our home territories right now.
But I'll also say I'm happy to come back anytime and every time you guys want me on this podcast. I'm your guy.
Well, I feel like we've literally just scraped at the
Scratched
paint.
the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yes.
All right, we do need to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking the time. Really great to see you. And catch you on the next one.
Thanks for having me. You guys are awesome. And to all the listeners, keep tuning in.
Yes. We got
That's
many more
right.
episodes to come.
All right, see you guys. Bye bye.